Hey, Vsause. Riley here. Marginalization. It's a term you might have heard, but do you know what it is? It's when one group has political, economic, and social power, and they're the top dogs, they're strong, and there's another group, and this group, not as strong. It has little to none political, economic, and social power, and they're pushed to the margins of society by the top dogs. And this has created what is known as a marginalized group. Now, let's take a look at some examples from history. We have the First Nations, and when the European colonists first arrived in North America, they had to make some changes. These colonists wanted to be the top dogs, so they pushed out the indigenous people and forced them into less than ideal conditions. Even now, they have little to none influence in societies. Now, I think this would be a great time to hand it over to Vsause 2.
Hey, Vsause 2, Kevin here. Marginalization has affected many different people. A large portion of that is racial groups, such as African Americans in the USA. Racial divides have fractured their country for centuries, and was built off the back of its roots in slavery. Even now, the repercussions of slavery can be seen. For example, in the 1980s, police brutality against African Americans was rampant, primarily African American and Latino neighborhoods. Take Compton, for example. African Americans in Compton were highly discriminated against, especially by their own police force. These African Americans were pushed to the edge of society by their discriminating and cruel justice system. They did have some advantages, and although their living conditions were not good, Compton created a strong community. This community banded together, creating a rich culture filled with music and protests that spanned farther than the edges of Compton and showed the issue of racial inequality and police brutality to the world. Now, I think this is a good time to hand over the video to Vsause 3.
Hey, Vsause 3, Liam here. Racial groups are not the only groups that marginalization affects either. Gender can also marginalize groups. For much of recorded history, women were considered inferior to men. They were not allowed to vote, make decisions for themselves, and couldn't work many jobs. It wasn't until the late 1800s that women started to receive the right to vote. Even today, in many places across the world, women are not treated equally. Very recently, in the last couple of months, women in Saudi Arabia were finally allowed the right to drive. While this has been a huge victory for the women of Saudi Arabia, it serves to highlight the oppression that women often face. Even today, the women in Saudi Arabia need permission from a male guardian in order to travel, receive medical procedures, open a bank account, and marry or divorce. When women cannot divorce their guardians unless the guardian agrees to it, it's terrible. So even though gender equality has seen massive improvements over the last century and a half, marginalization of women is still prevalent in many societies.